What's cracking, everyone? VenomousStare back with another 2v2 video. This time we have me with a random ally facing off against a Terran Zerg combo. Let's introduce the players. Top left, we have me, Out Now Savagewood, repping the Combat X clan picture. Shout out to Combat X, Wasif Combat EZ Con. This is a jokish little screenshot I made back in 2012, and it is now my clan emblem. Going for a hatchery first play on Overgrowth Facility, a map commonly considered to be a macro map, and I am with a guy named Death from the iDrunk clan. Now the iDrunk clan, if you're not familiar, is pretty much a clan full of cheesers. It's sort of funny when you play a lot of 2v2 in StarCraft. You get to know people's IDs. You get to know, okay, this guy's bad, this guy's good. These players play a certain way, and then you to a certain extent. This guy is from the iDrunk clan. Now, it took me a lot of games to figure this out, but the iDrunk clan is a clan full of cheesers. If you play against these guys, you always have to play really safe. The Terran players love to do 3 racks Reaper. But this guy, Death, I've probably played like 30 2v2 games with him over the course of the last year, and he loves to go Blink Stalker. Now you might think, oh well, his name's Death. Of course he likes to go Blink Stalker, but you know, it's not that easy. There are a lot of different people who play this game and use IDs for different reasons. And we can see here that Wilf is the blue Terran player, and he has gone for 1 Widow Mine, and it looks like he's going to tech into tank here probably. This game is very old, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I say very old. It's like a few days old, but I've played over probably 40 games since then. So with a factory going down onto reactor, this is probably going to actually be Drilling Claws. He rushed Armory, he's getting another factory, going to be a Widow Mine play, and there it is. So generally when you see one factory with Tech Lab, that's indicative of siege tanks, but if you see another factory with Reactor, along with a researching Tech Lab, that's either Blue Flame Hellions or Widow Mines. Now if they get a quick Armory, it's almost certainly going to be Widow Mines, and I'll answer why. It's because you have to have the Armory to get the Widow Mine upgrade, but you don't need the Armory to go for Blue Flame. Wilf has gone for an expansion, and his Zerg buddy has started to spread creep. He's gone for a Roach Warren, as well as a Spore in the mineral line, and notice this Marine patrolling at the top of his ramp. This is something that I think is really cute, because a lot of the times whenever you play with people in 2v2, they're pretty mean-spirited and don't exactly do their best to help. But anytime you can throw your ally a bone and help them out, it can earn you good favor, it can earn you good standing. And it can sort of make your ally feel like, wow, this guy's really trying to help me. I'm gonna do more for him. I'm going to be more willing to help him out. I'm going to be more willing to send him money if he needs it. I'm going to be more willing to communicate. We can see Savagewood, that's me, has accumulated pretty damn good saturation in his first couple bases, and is going to start making drones for his 3rd base. As for his ally, Death, he's opening up Stargate, and I love this play. As a Zerg player, this is very annoying to deal with. This isn't pleasant or fun to have to play against someone who opens for Stargate. Now this is what I like to call the Neeb Stargate, because Death doesn't really have any intention on going air, but he has opened for Stargate Phoenix, which means that he's going to be able to hunt around and look for overlords. And we can see here that he set his Phoenix on multiple patrol commands. Patrol is sort of like a move that never stops. So essentially what Death is saying is, I'm going to focus on killing your overlords and getting map control. Now as a Zerg player, sometimes if you look at some of my games, you'll notice that near the end of the game, I'll have overlords all throughout the sides of the map. And that gives me incredible map control. This is something that any good Zerg player should aim to do, spread their overlords throughout the map to get map control. Well, the issue is, if your opponent goes for a Viking, the infamous one Viking to hunt overlords that I've nicknamed the Pult Viking, or a Protoss player goes for a Phoenix or two, you run into this awful position where your map control that you've spent so much time working on is severely limited. And if you don't have overlord speed, this can be damning. You know, I actually asked Pultz in real life if he invented the one Viking versus Zerg, and he very humbly declined taking credit for it. He said that he really likes to do it, but he didn't make it up. And we can see here a Widowmine drop is going to occur for Wilf. The Widowmine drop used to be very popular, especially against Protoss, but after the Widowmine was nerfed to be visible after it went off, it fell out of favor. You would frequently see Terran players rush out a couple mines, do a drop, and if Protoss didn't open Observer, it was very, very rough for them to deal with. And we can see here Savagewood has basically played very greedy and not gone for a Spore in his main. There's the Spore. He has a Spore in his natural, and a Spore at his third, and of course I inverted those sentences. I'd like to point out the absolutely insane amount of creep tumors from our Zerg player, Barrelite. Usually whenever you see creep spread, you start with about 3 tumors and go from there. Unless you have 2 Zergs. If you have 2 Zergs in 2v2, you just go hog wild. You go absolutely ham. You spread as much creep as possible. And it looks like Savagewood here is going to be encroached upon, loses his creep queen, and Blink and Death is going to bring his infamous Blink Stalkers over here. He has 1-1. He's not microing particularly well. But this is one thing that I've noticed Blink and Death do every single game, is regardless of what opener he goes for, in the mid game he's going to go for double forge, and he's not going to be diligent about the upgrades, but he's going to make 2 forges and he's going to try to get 1-1. Now the crux of this build is that whenever you go for a quick Twilight to rush out a Blink upgrade, you're able to double upgrade. And not necessarily double upgrade, you know, as a necessity, but you can go into a quick +2. Now, you have to have Twilight to go into +2, and most people know this. But what most people don't know is that back in the day, there was a very popular Protoss All-In versus Zerg, which was +2, 8 Gateway, Blink. And essentially, the reason that that build was popular is you could go for heavy Gateway aggression, make Stalkers early to deny scouting information, but here's the crux of the issue. Because you went for an early Twilight, players would rush out +2, and we can see I'm pinging like a madman here. And this is actually one of my least favorite changes in StarCraft 2 history, is limiting the ping. Back in the day, as we see Blink and Death just absolutely run into a bunch of Widowmines here, and despite the fact that he had Blink, he's going to lose a lot of his stuff to Wilf. So back in the day, you could ping unlimited. You could literally, as long as you could click quick enough, you could like write shit on the mini-map, you could ping so quick. Now there's a limit of 3 pings. I really hate that, because sometimes in 2v2 you have to wake an ally up. I've played thousands of games of StarCraft 2 as we see a bunch of lurkers morphing here for Savagewood, and 4 bases are out here for Blink and Death. And so many creep tumors on the map that it looks like chicken pox for Beerolite. And we can see he's trying to push up into the lurkers here is Beerolite, but once the lurkers finish, you're going to have an exceptionally difficult time pushing into them. So to finish my thoughts about the +2 Blink builds, back in the day you saw +2 Blink Stalker versus Zerg. +2 is very powerful as an upgrade, and you could always use the Blink Stalkers aggressively to pressure your opponent, and here we're going to see a big mistake, as the upgraded Widowmines of Wilf are harder to play against than a lot of different sort of builds because you don't really see the Widow Mine upgrade rushed very frequently, and once that happens, it just really changes the pace of the game. You get in a position where you force your opponent into spots where they're not really ready for it. Because for so long, Terran players had Widow Mines that were visible after they were burrowed, and even before that, before the nerf, Terran players didn't go for mass Widow Mine build. It wasn't a thing. And we can see here Savagewood is having to retreat with his Lurker Hydra, and a huge influx of battlecruisers comes in here from Wilf and snipes the third base. Hydras for the blue team, Beera Light, are being barreled into the main base here, but Savagewood will clean that up. Although, between the BCs and the Hydra attack, he has been reduced to 2 bases. Now, the reason that we saw +2 blink used so much in an all-in blink sense is you could always minimize the damage on your stalkers. And by minimizing the damage and constantly building up a hefty backbone of stalkers, players are able to gain an insurmountable advantage versus Zerg through their unit retention and their front-loaded damage, and crush them that way. Now if we look at Blink and Death here, he has started up 3-3. Savagewood is getting a bit of revenge and taking out the 4th of the enemy Zerg, but mass BCs are going to be teleported here, and suddenly Savagewood is down to 1 base, which is very difficult to deal with as a Zerg. He's going to try to counterattack a bit here, but the Widow Mines are making this difficult. The Lurker should burrow here as we see mass infestors here from Beera Light. Huge fungal onto Savagewood's Hydras, but for the moment the infestors are a bit zoned out. We need to see some detection here from the red team, and this is really a huge mistake here from Blink and Death to not just make a bunch of observers. One of the things I like to do when I play Protoss in team games, I'll make an observer and just right click it on one of my allies' friendly units, and a ton of infestors get butchered there by the Lurkers. Savagewood has a foothold in the main base, is going to do severe damage, and we can see here Blink and Death is chasing away the BCs to the best of his ability. And because of the Lurker contain here at the ramp, it is almost impossible for Wilf to help on the ground. Now you might be saying, well, he's going for mass air. Why does it matter about the ground? Well, it's because Savagewood has a ton of Hydras here. Hydras in the middle of the ground are really one of the only things Zerg has to counter the BC. And if we look at this map, there's just a disgusting amount of airspace, and we can see Savagewood has littered overlords all over the map. But what you have here is a situation where airplay is very powerful, because whenever you look at airplay at its core, the more airspace you have, the better. And we can see that Beera Light has actually teched into mutas here, and Savagewood is losing a ton. He has pretty much killed the Zerg off, and if we go to structures, the Zerg really only has this 1 hatch, and if we go to units, the Zerg really only has a dozen mutas. Savagewood desperately trying to make spores to stop the mutas, and Blink and Death is going to clean up the last hatchery here. Couple spores are up, so the damage is somewhat mitigated here for Savagewood. And if we look at Blink and Death, he's having to deal with a huge cluster of battle cruisers. And Blink and Death does a huge blink into the main here to try to pressure the Terran, who just tellies out like he's PKing right into the base of the Zerg. And there is well over 10 battle cruisers into the base of the Zerg, and this is exceptionally difficult to deal with after you've been limited. And the Protoss player, we can see here, does have 3-3. This is one thing I've noticed about Blink and Death, is he just won't tech up properly. We can see no Twilight is available here. He loves to stick on Blink Stalker. And Beera Light will GG. Wilf, however, is going to try to continue the game with this BC play. Savagewood is finishing the game with his ally, but Blinking Death is going to retreat to try to defend these BCs. An intelligent player would have recalled. Savagewood's going to do some game-ending damage here to Wilf, as Blinking Death is taking the absolute slowest way back, like he's avoiding the toll roads. And he's going to try to clean up the BCs here. Meanwhile, Savagewood is continuing to aggress upon Wilf. Mines are being burrowed. Savagewood trying to run one Hydra forward to set off the mines, and finally, mercifully, he gets an Overseer over here. We can see here that Savagewood basically has been ravaged. This is a very close game. He does have some Hydras out here still, though. Blinking Death is cleaning up the Zerg with Mass Blink Stalker. We're going to kick it up to ×2 speed here, as Mass BCs are ravaging the base of the Protoss. But the Toss is rebuilding his 2 bases that he lost, the 3rd and the 4th. And we've run into a bit of a base trade here, as we see a little under a dozen BCs out here, 11 BCs out at the moment. And Savagewood is doing his best to kill the remaining structures for the Terran player. And let's go to structures, because in StarCraft you have to eliminate all of your opponent's buildings to win. The Zerg is completely dead. He's already left the game. Creep tumors, of course, do not count. We can see Savagewood intelligently spreading his lurkers out and trying to inform his opponent, who is notoriously stuck on Blink Stalkers, that, yeah, you need to go air, because look at this. Wilf has floated some of his buildings. That's not a building. Wilf has floated some of his buildings out in the corner of the map, and he still has this barracks out in the middle from the beginning. The Mutas are doing their best to clean up, and we can see some of Wilf's stuff was actually over here in Savagewood's natural. Sometimes whenever you have these crazy base trade scenarios, things get a little goofy. Now, Wilf does have an observer over the BCs, so there's really no way he can be caught off guard, except for, of course, the teleport. And we can see Wilf is doing his best to limit the base count of Blinking Death. Savagewood is fastidiously attempting to destroy everything on the map. And you see a lot of changelings moving about here on move commands, checking on the bases. Lurkers are staying stagnant at the bases to make sure that one can't be snuck. And sometimes you can cheat wins as a Terran player by making air units and doing a base trade scenario and trying to put your opponent in a position where they essentially don't have anti-air. But we're going to see Blinking Death was actually ready for that one, as he had about half of his army waiting at his other base, and as soon as he tellied in, he got popped. And that's the game. Make sure you subscribe for more.